Hello and welcome to EP Learning English. I'm really glad you're here today. This is a space where we don't rush, we don't judge ourselves, and we don't try to be perfect. We simply try to understand ourselves a little better, in English and in life. If you're listening right now, it means you care about growth, even if it sometimes feels slow or confusing. Today's episode is not about forcing change or blaming yourself. It's about discovering a quiet strength you already have. A strength that can help you think more clearly, speak more calmly, and move forward with confidence. So, take a moment, settle in, and allow yourself to be present. Have you ever noticed how easily a small moment can slip out of control? You open your phone to reply to one message, and suddenly 20 minutes are gone. Or maybe someone says something that touches a sensitive nerve, and before you even realize it, you've replied too fast, with words you later wish you had chosen more carefully. These moments feel normal, almost harmless, yet they quietly shape our days, our habits, and sometimes even our relationships. We don't always lose control in dramatic ways. Most of the time it happens in small, ordinary moments that feel unimportant at the time. Think about the last time you procrastinated, even though you knew exactly what you needed to do. You told yourself you would start in 5 minutes, just after one more video, one more scroll, one more distraction. And maybe later that day, when the pressure returned, you felt frustrated. Not because the task was difficult, but because you knew you had avoided it. When was the last time you did something you later regretted? Not because you are careless, but simply because you reacted too fast, or chose comfort instead of focus. On Code Your English, we often talk about growth, not only in language, but in mindset. And today, I want to invite you to look at self-control in a different way. Many people think self-control means being strict, cold, or constantly fighting against yourself. It sounds like punishment. It sounds like rules, pressure, and saying no all the time. But what if that idea is completely wrong? What if self-control is not about forcing yourself to suffer, but about giving yourself more freedom? Real self-control is not about becoming a different person. It's about creating a small pause between a feeling and an action. In that pause, you gain choice. You choose whether to react or respond. You choose whether to continue scrolling or return to what truly matters. You choose whether to speak from emotion or from intention. And that choice, even when it's quiet and invisible, is powerful. So here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. What if self-control wasn't about punishment, but about power? The power to protect your time, your energy, and your focus. The power to stay calm when emotions rise. The power to move forward, even when distraction and self-doubt try to pull you backward. In today's episode, we're going to explore how self-control can become your new superpower. Not by being perfect, but by becoming more aware, more intentional, and more in control of your own direction. Take a breath, get comfortable, and let's begin. Redefining self-control. Not what we think it is. Let's take a moment to clear something up, because self-control is one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal growth. When many people hear the phrase self-control, they imagine someone who never makes mistakes, never feels tempted, and never acts emotionally. It sounds like a kind of perfection, almost robotic. But real life doesn't work like that. Real people feel impulses. We get tired, distracted, emotional, and unsure. So, if self-control meant never feeling these things, then none of us would ever succeed. That definition is not only unrealistic, it's discouraging. Self-control is not about suppressing who you are or pushing your emotions deep inside and pretending they don't exist. Suppression often creates more tension, not less. When you ignore feelings like frustration, fear, or anger, they don't disappear. They usually come back stronger, often at the worst possible moment. True self-control starts with awareness. It begins when you notice what you're feeling instead of immediately acting on it. Awareness gives you information. It tells you, something is happening inside me right now, without judging it as good or bad. Once awareness appears, something powerful follows. Choice. Between an impulse and an action, there is a small space. It may only last a second, but that second matters. In that pause, you are no longer controlled by habit or emotion. You can decide how you want to respond. Self-control is not about saying no to everything. It's about saying yes to what truly matters, and not now to what pulls you away from it. It's not about being strict. It's about being intentional. Think about how our modern culture makes this pause very difficult. We live in a world that rewards speed, not reflection. Messages arrive instantly, and we feel pressure to reply instantly. Opinions appear online, and we are expected to react immediately, to like, share, agree, or argue. Social media trains us to follow impulses without thinking. If something makes us angry, we respond. If something excites us, we chase it. Over time, this constant reaction becomes automatic, and we forget that slowing down is even an option. This is why redefining self-control is so important. It's not about controlling everything perfectly. It's about noticing impulses without letting them drive every decision. For example, you might feel the impulse to check your phone while studying English. Self-control doesn't mean hating yourself for that urge. It means recognizing it, understanding why it appears, and choosing whether to act on it or let it pass. The impulse may still exist, but it no longer controls you. At a deeper level, self-control is an act of self-respect. When you pause before reacting, you're telling yourself that your time, your energy, and your goals are worth protecting. You are choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. This doesn't make life rigid or joyless. In fact, it often creates more freedom because you are no longer constantly pulled in different directions by every notification, emotion, or external opinion. So, let's change the story we tell ourselves. Self-control is not about being perfect. It's not about suppressing emotions or becoming someone else. It's about awareness instead of autopilot. It's about intention instead of impulse. And it's about creating just enough space between what you feel and what you do, so you can live, speak, and act in a way that truly reflects who you want to become. The modern world versus your attention. If you step back and look at modern life honestly, one thing becomes very clear. Our attention is under constant pressure. It's not being taken away all at once in a dramatic moment. Instead, it's pulled gently, repeatedly, and almost invisibly. A vibration in your pocket, a sound from your phone, a small red notification that promises something new. Each interruption feels small, but together they quietly shape how we think, how we work, and how we live. Think about how often you check your phone without even making a conscious decision. You don't always think, I want to check my phone now. Your hand simply moves. You unlock the screen. You scroll. Sometimes you don't even remember why you picked it up in the first place. These moments seem harmless, but they slowly train your brain to seek constant stimulation. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable. Focus starts to feel difficult, and deep concentration becomes rare. The modern world is designed to compete for your attention. Apps, platforms, and media are not neutral. They are carefully built to keep you engaged for as long as possible. Every notification is a small request for your time. Every message creates a sense of urgency, even when nothing is truly urgent. Over time, this constant demand creates a habit of reacting instead of choosing. We respond to what appears in front of us, rather than deciding what deserves our focus. What makes this situation more challenging is that the loss of control happens slowly. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel distracted forever. It happens in small steps. A few minutes lost here, a task delayed there, a moment of focus interrupted, again and again. At first, it doesn't feel serious, but weeks later, you may notice that you struggle to finish tasks, stay present in conversations, or enjoy quiet moments without reaching for a screen. This has a deep effect on adult learners, especially those trying to improve skills like English. Learning requires attention, patience, and repetition. But when your focus is constantly broken, even simple practice feels tiring. You may sit down with good intentions, but your mind jumps from one thought to another. This can create frustration and self-doubt, even though the real problem is not your ability, but the environment pulling your attention in too many directions. So it's worth asking yourself an honest question. How often do you check your phone without even thinking? Not because you need something, but because your mind is used to being stimulated. And maybe a more important question is this: who is really in control of your time? Is it you, or is it every notification, message, and digital impulse that appears during the day? Self-control in the modern world is not about rejecting technology or living in isolation. It's about becoming aware of how your attention is being used. When you notice where your focus goes, you begin to see how much power attention really has. And once you see that clearly, you can start making small, intentional choices, choosing moments of focus, choosing moments of rest, and slowly taking back control of your own mental space. Emotional self-control. Responding instead of reacting. One of the most challenging areas of self-control is emotional self-control, especially in the way we speak to others. Emotions are fast. They appear before logic has time to react. Anger rises suddenly. Stress builds quietly and then explodes. Insecurity hides behind defensive words. In these moments, we often say things not because we truly believe them, but because we want relief from the feeling we are experiencing. And once the words are spoken, we cannot take them back. Think about an argument at work or at home. Someone criticizes you, interrupts you, or misunderstands your intentions. Your body reacts immediately. Your heart beats faster. Your thoughts become sharp. Before you even finish processing what happened, your mouth responds. Later, when the emotion fades, regret often appears. You replay the moment in your mind and think, if I had paused for just a few seconds, I might have explained myself better. Or, if I had stayed calm, this conversation could have gone in a completely different direction. This is where emotional self-control becomes a sign of maturity, not weakness. Pausing before speaking does not mean you agree with the other person or accept unfair treatment. It means you care about the outcome of the conversation. When you pause, you give your mind time to catch up with your emotions. That small pause allows you to choose words that express your point clearly, instead of words that release anger or frustration. There is a clear cause and effect relationship between how we react emotionally and the results we experience. When we react without thinking, conversations often become conflicts. Voices get louder. Understanding disappears. But when we respond with intention, even difficult conversations can remain respectful. The cause is awareness and pause. The effect is clearer communication and fewer regrets. Emotional self-control does not remove emotion from the situation. It simply prevents emotion from being the only voice in the room. Many adults struggle with this, especially under pressure. Stress from work, family responsibilities, or personal expectations can reduce patience. When stress is high, the emotional reaction becomes stronger, and self-control becomes harder. This is not a personal failure. It is a human response. However, recognizing this pattern gives you an opportunity to interrupt it. The next time you feel emotional tension rising, you can silently name it. I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling insecure. This simple awareness can slow the reaction and create space for a better response. Imagine how many situations in your life could change with this one skill. Arguments might become discussions. Disagreements might turn into understanding. And even when the outcome is not perfect, you would leave the conversation with less regret. You could honestly say, I spoke with intention, instead of, I wish I had said something different. Emotional self-control is not about being silent or passive. It is about choosing words that serve your long-term goals, not your short-term emotions. It is the ability to protect relationships, your self-respect, and your peace of mind. And every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen this skill. Over time, those pauses become natural, and responding thoughtfully becomes part of who you are. Calm, clear, and in control of your voice. Self-control and consistency. Small choices, big results. After exploring emotions and reactions, it's important to talk about another side of self-control that often decides long-term success: consistency. Many people believe progress depends on motivation. We wait to feel inspired, energetic, or confident before we take action. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes depending on mood, energy, weather, stress, or even sleep. If you only act when you feel motivated, your progress will always be unstable. Self-control works differently. It doesn't ask, do I feel like doing this today? Instead, it quietly asks, is this important to me? When the answer is yes, self-control helps you show up, even when the excitement is gone. This is where real change begins. Not in big, dramatic decisions, but in small actions repeated over time. These actions often feel boring and ordinary, which is why they are easy to underestimate. Think about learning English. Most learners don't fail because they are not intelligent enough. They struggle because learning requires regular practice, even on days when progress feels slow. One short listening session, one page of reading, or 10 minutes of speaking practice may not feel powerful in the moment. But when these small choices are repeated daily, they create momentum. Over weeks and months, the results become visible. Vocabulary grows. Confidence improves. Understanding becomes more natural. The same pattern appears in exercise and daily routines. A single workout does not change your body. A single healthy meal does not transform your lifestyle. But small, consistent habits do. Self-control is what helps you put on your shoes and start moving, even when your mind suggests staying comfortable. It's what helps you follow a routine when no one is watching and no immediate reward is waiting. This kind of discipline is quiet. It doesn't feel exciting, and it doesn't bring instant results, but it builds strength over time. There is a strong connection between self-control and trust in yourself. Every time you show up, even in a small way, you send yourself a message. I can rely on myself. This builds confidence in a deeper way than motivation ever could. Motivation says, I'll act when I feel good. Self-control says, I'll act because this matters to me. That difference changes how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. Many people give up not because the goal is too big, but because they expect progress to feel exciting all the time. When improvement becomes slow or uncomfortable, self-doubt appears. But this is where self-control becomes powerful. It helps you continue without drama. You don't need to feel strong. You don't need to feel ready. You simply need to keep the habit alive. Even imperfect action is better than none. Self-control does not demand perfection. Missing a day does not mean failure. What matters is returning, choosing again, continuing. This is why consistency beats intensity. A calm, steady effort will always go further than short periods of extreme motivation followed by long breaks. In the end, self-control is not loud or visible. It doesn't announce itself. It works silently in the background, shaping your habits, your skills, and your future. Small choices, made again and again, create big results. And every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you are proving to yourself that quiet power can change your life. The hidden enemies: perfectionism and self-doubt. As we talk about consistency and self-control, it's important to face two quiet enemies that often work against us: perfectionism and self-doubt. They don't usually appear as loud negative thoughts. Instead, they sound reasonable, even protective. They tell us to wait a little longer, to prepare more, to avoid mistakes. On the surface, this seems responsible. But over time, these thoughts can completely block progress. Many adults delay action because they don't feel ready. They believe they need more knowledge, more confidence, or better conditions before they begin. This is especially common when learning English. You might think, I'll start speaking when my grammar is better, or I'll share my opinion once I feel more confident. The problem is that confidence rarely comes before action. In most cases, it appears after repeated experience. When you wait to feel ready, you may end up waiting forever. Perfectionism often hides behind high standards. Wanting to do something well is not a problem. The problem appears when doing well becomes doing it perfectly or not at all. This mindset creates pressure. Every small mistake feels like proof of failure. As a result, you may avoid situations where mistakes are possible. You stay silent in conversations. You don't practice speaking. You consume content passively instead of actively using the language. Slowly, perfectionism reduces your opportunities to grow. Self-doubt adds another layer to this struggle. It questions your ability and exaggerates your weaknesses. A small mistake feels big. A moment of confusion feels embarrassing. You compare yourself to others and assume they are more fluent, more confident, or more capable. This inner voice can be convincing, but it is not always accurate. Most learners around you are also struggling, making mistakes, and feeling unsure. They just don't talk about it. There is a clear connection between perfectionism, self-doubt, and lack of self-control. When fear controls your decisions, self-control becomes harder. You may choose comfort over challenge, silence over participation, and delay over action. This doesn't happen because you are lazy or unmotivated. It happens because your mind is trying to protect you from discomfort. Unfortunately, that protection also blocks progress. This is why an important question to ask yourself is, have you ever delayed something because you wanted to do it perfectly? Maybe you avoided speaking English in public. Maybe you postponed starting a new habit. If the answer is yes, you're not alone. But here's another question that can change everything. What if progress mattered more than confidence? What if confidence was not a requirement, but a result? Self-control helps you move forward even when self-doubt is present. It allows you to act while feeling unsure. It reminds you that mistakes are not signs of failure, but signs of effort. Every mistake gives feedback. Every imperfect attempt builds experience. Over time, these experiences create confidence naturally, without forcing it. Letting go of perfection does not mean lowering your standards. It means changing your timeline. You accept that growth happens through repetition, not through flawless performance. You allow yourself to be a learner. When you speak English imperfectly, you are not failing. You are practicing. When you feel uncomfortable, you are not weak. You are growing. Perfectionism promises safety, but progress delivers freedom. Self-doubt tries to keep you still, but self-control invites you to move forward anyway. And each small step you take, even without confidence, weakens these hidden enemies and strengthens your belief in your own ability to learn, improve, and continue. Self-control as self-respect. When we talk about self-control, it's easy to focus on discipline, habits, or willpower. But at a deeper level, self-control is really about self-respect. It's about how seriously you take your own promises, your own time, and your own future. Every time you say you will do something and then ignore it, a small part of your trust in yourself weakens. And every time you follow through, even in a small way, that trust grows stronger. Think about the promises you make to yourself quietly, without telling anyone else. Promises like, I'll practice English for a few minutes today, or I'll go to bed earlier tonight, or I'll stop scrolling and focus. No one else is watching. There is no punishment if you break these promises, and yet they matter deeply. Keeping these small promises is a way of saying, I respect myself enough to listen to my own intentions. Saying no is one of the hardest parts of self-control, especially in a world full of distractions. Notifications, entertainment, and constant information are always available. They offer immediate comfort and pleasure. Saying no to them doesn't mean you dislike fun or relaxation. It means you are choosing when and how to enjoy them, instead of letting them choose for you. Each time you say no to a distraction, you are saying yes to your focus, your peace, and your growth. This choice becomes especially important when the results are not immediate. Long-term growth often feels invisible at the beginning. Practicing a language, building a routine, or developing a skill does not always give instant satisfaction. Short-term comfort, on the other hand, feels good right away. This is why self-control is often tested in quiet moments, when no one is encouraging you and no reward is guaranteed. Choosing growth in those moments requires patience and belief in yourself. Self-respect grows when you choose what benefits you in the long run, even if it feels uncomfortable now. It's not about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest. You recognize that comfort is temporary, but progress lasts. You understand that every focused moment is an investment in your future self. And that future self will be grateful for the choices you make today. There is also kindness in self-control. Respecting yourself does not mean demanding perfection or constant effort. It means knowing when to rest and when to push gently forward. It means setting limits, not to punish yourself, but to protect your energy. True self-respect includes balance. You listen to your needs, but you don't let excuses control your direction. Over time, this way of living changes how you see yourself. You begin to trust your decisions. You feel more stable and confident, not because life becomes easier, but because you handle it with more intention. Self-control becomes less about struggle and more about alignment. Your actions begin to match your values. When you keep promises to yourself, when you say no to distractions with clarity, and when you choose long-term growth over short-term comfort, you are sending a powerful message to yourself. I matter. My goals matter. My future matters. And that message, repeated daily through small choices, builds a deep and lasting sense of self-respect that no external approval can replace. Practical micro-shifts, simple, realistic practices. After exploring ideas like awareness, consistency, and self-respect, it's natural to ask a practical question. What does self-control actually look like in daily life? Not in theory, but in real moments when emotions rise or distractions appear. The answer is simpler than many people expect. Self-control doesn't require dramatic changes or strict rules. It begins with small, realistic shifts that create space between what you feel and what you do. One of the most powerful micro-shifts is learning to pause before reacting. This pause does not need to be long. Even one deep breath can slow the moment enough to change the outcome. When something triggers you, a message, a comment, a stressful situation, your impulse may push you to react immediately. But when you pause, you interrupt the automatic pattern. You give your mind a chance to ask, do I want to respond like this? That single question can prevent regret and lead to clearer communication. Creating space between impulse and action is another quiet practice that builds self-control over time. Impulses are natural. Wanting to check your phone, avoid a task, or speak quickly when emotions are high is part of being human. The goal is not to remove impulses, but to notice them. When you notice an impulse, you no longer have to obey it. You can let it pass, or you can choose a different action. This space is where freedom lives. A helpful way to create this space is by naming what you feel. Silently saying, I feel impatient, or I feel distracted, brings awareness without judgment. You are not telling yourself that the feeling is wrong. You are simply observing it. This observation weakens the impulse and strengthens your ability to choose. Over time, this practice becomes natural, and you respond with more calm and intention. Instead of trying to change many habits at once, focus on one small habit change. Choose something simple and realistic. For example, decide to wait 5 minutes before opening social media, or to practice English for 10 minutes a day. The goal is not intensity, but consistency. Small habits are easier to maintain because they don't create pressure. They fit into your life instead of fighting against it. It's important to approach these practices with kindness. There is no need for strict rules or self-punishment. Some days you will pause and choose well. Other days you will react automatically. Both are part of the learning process. Self-control grows through awareness, not criticism. When you notice a moment where you reacted without thinking, you can simply reflect and move on. The next moment is always another opportunity. These micro-shifts may feel too small to matter at first, but their power comes from repetition. Each pause strengthens your awareness. Each intentional choice builds confidence. Slowly, your reactions become calmer, your habits more stable, and your decisions more aligned with your values. Without forcing change, you begin to live with more control and less regret. In the end, self-control is not about controlling your entire life. It's about showing up consciously in small moments. One pause, one choice, one habit at a time. And over time, these simple practices create a quiet strength that supports your growth. In language learning, in relationships, and in how you relate to yourself. As we come to the end of this episode, it's important to leave you with one calm and reassuring reminder. Self-control is a skill, not a personality trait. You are not born with it or without it. Some people simply practice it more, often without realizing it. That means it can be learned, strengthened, and improved over time. If self-control feels difficult right now, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It simply means this skill is still developing. Many people believe that personal change requires a complete transformation. They think they must become more disciplined, more confident, or more focused all at once. This idea can feel overwhelming and exhausting. The truth is, you don't need to change everything. You don't need to redesign your life or control every habit. Real change often begins quietly, with one small decision made differently than before. One pause, one moment of awareness, one intentional choice. Self-control grows through practice, not pressure. It develops when you notice yourself in everyday situations, when you choose to focus for a few minutes longer, when you pause before reacting emotionally, or when you return to a habit even after missing a day. These moments may seem small, but they shape how you experience your life. Over time, they create a sense of stability and trust within yourself. It's also important to be patient with the process. Progress is rarely fast or visible. Some days you may feel strong and clear. Other days you may feel distracted or tired. This does not cancel your growth. It's simply part of being human. Self-control does not demand perfection. It invites awareness. Each time you notice your behavior without judging yourself, you are already practicing it. As you carry this idea with you today, try not to look for dramatic results. Instead, pay attention to small moments where you have a choice. Notice how often you act automatically and how often you pause. Notice how different it feels to respond with intention instead of reacting from habit. These observations alone can begin to shift your mindset. Before we end, I'd like to leave you with one thoughtful question. Not to answer immediately, but to reflect on during your day. Where in your life could a little more self-control change everything? It might be in how you manage your time, how you speak to others, how you treat yourself, or how you approach your goals. There is no right or wrong answer. The value is in the reflection. Thank you for spending this time with me on Code Your English. I hope this episode has given you not only useful language practice, but also a new way to think about your own power. Remember, self-control doesn't make life smaller. It makes it clearer. And with clarity comes freedom.